I think it's working.
I think it's working now too.
See,
Thank you so much, sweetheart.
I didn't do anything.
Your presence alone.
Well, you know, that does help.
Are we supposed to be
The
hearing this?
room. See what happens when we enter the room. See,
Keep a happy home.
you know what I'm saying?
Whatever.
Just you
Just
wait.
saying,
Whatever.
You wait.
when the lights go off and the camera shut down, who are you left with? That's who's important.
Right.
What's going on, everybody? I'm gonna give you a few minutes to come on in. 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 We're trying to make it happen on tonight. Listen, we are here for Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry Part 2. I'm going to give you a few more minutes to come in, share this page, let people know we are moving, we are on, we are here to make it happen tonight. We have an exciting sessions. Our guests are here, and we are excited about it. Right now, I want you to take a moment and share this with everyone that you know will watch and that want to receive greater insight about how to make sure that you take care of yourself. Those of you that serve in ministry, this is important for all of us, and I think that it will be a tremendous blessing. You don't want to miss the session tonight. So I'm going to give you a few more minutes. I want to give more people opportunity and time to get on. Text somebody, let them know we are moving forward. YMA is on tonight for our part 2 of Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry. Oh, it's going down tonight. It's going down. All right. We will be going forward with our questions and with our guests in a few minutes. I want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves so that you'll know who they are and what they specialize in, the areas that they specialize in. I'm telling you, their voices are incredible, and I promise you, you don't want to miss the session on tonight. So join us. I'm going to ask those of who are on my staff. I see Jamie, Minister Jamie Lott. If you don't mind, could you just share it to our private page, to those that are on the private page that are waiting to view this broadcast? They can see it there as well. And for those of you that are joining in that want to share it on your personal page, you may feel free to do that as well. It's that time. It's that time. We have been waiting for this. There's some exciting things. This is a continuation from the conversation that we had a couple of months ago, I believe now. And so I promise you, it's going to bless your life in this entire process as we move forward. Of course, we know that there's so much stuff that is happening. Of course, we have been experiencing this pandemic for a while now, and there's been rises and falls with this whole situation on a global level. Now they're talking about a heightening in numbers for those that are becoming sick with this disease, but we're definitely praying, and we need to know, it is important for us to know how to handle ourselves, how to treat ourselves properly during this time. One of the things that we failed to do, we failed to take time to step back, reprocess, reprogram, recalibrate, so that we can make sure that we are at our best, especially those of us that are in ministry. Sometimes we become victims of burnout, and that's one of the things that we will talk about tonight. So we don't want to do that. Our guests that are on here, they are incredible, and they have so much that they have on their plate, and literally they have taken the time to entertain little old me by coming on here and being our guest. And I promise you, you don't want to miss this. Also, by way of announcement, we are preparing. It is about to happen. I believe it is July 29th. Through August 1st, July 29th through August 1st, we are having our international summer virtual convention. It is going to be amazing. We have some wonderful, powerful speakers. We have Bishop Noel Jones, Bishop Lambert Gates, our very own presiding bishop, Bishop Theodore Brooks, Pastor John Hanna, Elder Mark Moore, Pastor YPJ, Pastor Valerie Crumpton, Dr.Rayvan Key, and a host of others that will be joining us in great conversation, great ministry, even some amazing musical guests. I'm telling you, this convention is going to be phenomenal. You don't want to miss it. So that will be again July 29th through August 1st. So we want to make sure that you have that information and tune in. All right, we're in now. Listen, more people will join in as they come and find out that we're live. But I want to get started. Welcome to YMA's Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry Part 2. This is our normally every 3 Thursdays out of the month, we come on live to have a session to empower young ministers. And what we've tried to do is make this session more accessible to others to view so that you all can see what we're doing, what we're about. We are committed to investing into young ministers within our organization, the Great Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, to make sure that we're not just well-rounded in preaching and teaching, but also holistically how we can be what we need to be for the kingdom of God, because we need us to do the things that we do. And so if we can't do those things if we're not together. But we have some extraordinary guests that are joining me in conversation tonight. I want to start with Dr. Malakia Brown, and then I'm going to go to Minister Lee Vincent, and then Dr. Ray Key. I want you just to introduce yourself, let us know a few things about you, some of your credentials and things of that nature. Dr. Brown, take it away.
Praise the Lord, everyone. I am Dr. Malakia Brown, and I am an ordained evangelist of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, as well as a clinician with an expertise in trauma and also in minority health issues, working on some exciting things in relationship to African American psychology, which is one of the classes that I teach as a professor. We know currently that it's very much an issue that's at the forefront of everyone's mind. But I have a soft spot for leaders. I'm a PK, so I've seen what leadership and being in ministry can do to our physical man as well as our mental health. And so I have a soft spot for leaders and for young people as well, because I feel like the demand on those two groups of people are unique, but they're heavy. And so I'm trying to work as best as I can to be an advocate and a resource for those to be as healthy as possible.
Awesome. Minister Lee Vincent.
Yes, tough act to follow. But yes, hello everybody. My name is Minister Lee Vincent. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a minister here in the PAW, as well as a provisionally licensed professional counselor. I currently work as an intensive in-home therapist, which means I'm working with kiddos that are in residential or foster care who would need to kind of stabilize in the community. So that's my day job. I also am doing a little side private practice, hoping to get my own going here shortly, God willing. Lord help us all. But I have a background in mental health that's about 10 years long, from case management to acute psychiatric care. So anything for clinical mental health, I've kind of seen it and been in that arena. And it's just a heart that I have. I really love helping people. My passion is kind of bridging the gap between ministry as far as reaching those that are in church and bringing kind of this psychological concepts to the church and being able to bridge that gap between how do I take care of myself? How can I be a better person by managing my mental health properly and managing my spiritual health as well? And so that's a personal desire that I have. I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements lately that I've been blessed to be able to do. Also talking about racism, the climate that's going on today, understanding that from a mental health standpoint, understanding how racial bias, racial identity, racial trauma is impacting us as a community. So that's also a passion of mine, is kind of understanding that, having this competence about what's going on within our racial groups. So I'm just happy to be here, bringing all of this together. And I just have to say, this is just a personal. I just gotta say a shout out to my husband. We're about to celebrate our 11-year anniversary. So love you, boo. Hey, Deontay. Love you. Sorry, I had to do that real quick. But yes, so it's a little personal shout out. But yes, happy to be here and thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. Dr. Ray.
Yes, sir. My name is Dr. Rayvan Key. I am all the way from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where right now it's almost bedtime. And I am so excited to be here, and I love what I do with all my heart that I am going to sacrifice sleep so that you can be healthy. All right. I've been in the field for about 13 years, 13 plus years. I'm a clinical psychologist. I consider myself a mental wellness consultant. I own a private practice called Empowerment Counseling, Coaching, and Consulting. I've been working for myself for the last almost 4 years, and I specialize in leadership and mental health in the faith community, minority mental health, business and mental health. I love to talk about things on the intersection of psychology, spirituality, and business. So I'm here. I'm excited. I'm ready to talk. Let's get this thing going, man.
Awesome. So
Let's
listen,
get it.
all of those that are viewing, you can see clearly without question that our guests are more than qualified. And because of that reason, I just want to make sure I put this plug in now. And I'm going to ask some of my staff, those that are on, those that can, whoever can do this real quick, just put a pin, a comment pin or what have you, whatever it's called, and just kind of inform everyone, those that would like to give. We want to sow into our guests as best as we can. They didn't ask me to do this. They haven't charged me anything because we are starting things from the ground up, and we've been going now for a while, but we're still building momentum and still getting things together. So we want to take this time to encourage all those that can to sow. Just sow a seed. I want you to go to Cash App, $IPYPU, $IPYPU. And I want you to put in the memo section, hashtag YMA HM and the number 2, all one phrase. All right. In the memo section, again, go to $IPYPU on Cash App, put hashtag in the memo sign, YMA HM and the number 2, and we'll make sure that we are able to divvy those funds and allocate them accordingly and bless our guests for just sharing with us this wealth of information. All right, guys, I have some questions in front of me, but I want to have it organic like we did it last time. So I want to address some things. Of course, we have been dealing not just with this pandemic, but of course, and many of you all have already been on several different forums and have had different courses that you've been teaching about all that is happening with racial injustice, social injustice, all of these different things, racial discrimination, social injustice, which has really taken center stage since the unfortunate tragedy in the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I want to kind of deal with the emotional trauma that many of us, particularly people of color, have been dealing with. What has been one of the most impactful things that you all have experienced when dealing with those, or counseling, or even advising those that have been dealing with trauma? What has been the most impactful thing, or what has been the reoccurring theme that you all have had to touch or deal with surrounding this issue? Anyone can take it. I'll just allow that to be open for anyone to take it.
Well, I can definitely start. As a Black male, as a Black therapist, one of the things that I noticed during this pandemic, but particularly because of the mounting racial tension, I have had a significant increase in Black male clients who are looking for someone who looks like them, that can kind of relate, that they can kind of share with regarding the trauma of, the death of George Floyd and how that's impacting them and re-impacting them during this time. I think one of the most impactful things for me in hearing them speak and working with them is to see the level of vulnerability and emotional display coming from Black men who most likely have been raised in environments where there's a lot of toxic masculinity, to see these men age, I'd say about 17 to about 40, literally break down in tears in front of another Black male. I thought I would be able, I thought I was used to it, or I would be able to handle it, but to almost feel what they feel. And I know that part of it is my stuff coming up as well, but I have never been so triggered by working with clients who are dealing with trauma and being re-traumatized, or having traumas come up to the surface because of what's happening. I've never been so triggered in my life. And on one hand, I'm like, wow, all of this emotional material and it's there, and it's been repressed and hidden, and it's coming forth. And some of them don't even know how to shut it off. That's how impacted they've been. And because they've been impacted, I've been impacted. But just the level of vulnerability and emotional display, I have never seen such strong appearing Black males be so vulnerable.
Wow, that's something right there. Anyone else? I want to just kind of stay here for a little bit.
I'll say for me, it's the personal impact that I'm seeing people responding to what they're seeing on TV. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. There's a whole list. And these are people that we don't know personally. And it seems like all those that I interact with, whether they be students or whether they be clients, it's as if they know these people personally. I've watched clients break down about the issue. I've watched colleagues who are faculty, when we've had these open forums to talk about this particular issue, literally cry, because it's like the scab was peeled off for them. The things that we've dealt with and we've ignored, that have been a constant thing for African Americans in the workplace and education, in society at large, these situations have basically pulled the top off of something, and it's just like it's oozing out of them. And they don't know what to do with these emotions. They go from being devastated and crying and sad to being angry, like a boiling rage that's inside of them. And these are people that are not quick-tempered people, but it's simmering in them and they don't know what to do with this energy. But the positive thing that I think has been the blessing for me is the move to be an activist in some kind of way. I'm not going to just be emotional and be a victim. I'm going to do something with this energy. I've seen my children do this. My youngest is 19. She goes to a predominantly white Christian university. And that environment highlighted basically the existence, the lived experience of the Black person in this country. And for her and my other two, they were like, we have to do something, because the country can't stay like this. It has to change. So I feel like that was what was impactful for me. Yes, we felt emotionally, it was deep. You're seeing different, spectrums of emotions, but the move to do something that you may not ever see the fruits of that. You may start something and you may be gone, and the next generation may see that, but it's moving us to actually do something to change it, because it can't stay the way it is right now.
Powerful. Lee, if you want to jump in, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me, my perspective that's been impactful has been how many parents have been reaching out to me since I work with adolescents and even young kids. It's how do I talk about racism with my child, whether that's families that are of color or white families. It's like, how do I broach this subject with my kids? How am I supposed to tell them about this big, scary world that may not like you if you're a child of color or a person of color? What do I do with that? How do I balance the reality of what's going on, that because of your skin color, you have a target on your back, but try to also convey that the world doesn't have to be this scary place. And I know for me, I even personally, I wrote about it on a Facebook post, that I had to have that conversation with my own daughter who's 10, and knowing that I have to do that for her safety, right? It's necessary for me to kind of burst this bubble that we all try to put our children in to keep them protected from the big bad world. We do all those things, but to know that I have to rip that Band-Aid off, I have to pop that bubble, that was an emotional experience for me. And so it's walking my parents through that experience for them, which they're going through their own racial identity experience. And how do I reconcile with the fact that maybe as a white person, I didn't really learn all of these things before. I didn't recognize my own level of racism or implicit bias before. So how am I supposed to teach my children about this? And so I think that that's been most impactful and has been my own journey to walk through with my own family, and then walking with my parents and my kiddos, of talking about really difficult things without trying to scare them, because they still have to grow up in a world. They have to go to school. They have to find a job eventually. And how are they going to navigate that without being terrified?
Wow. Listen, this is amazing. And I really want those that are even in our viewing audience to take this time again to share this to your personal page. Let people know we're doing this. I want to make sure that all of the young ministers that are a part of this great organization to tune in now, because this information is so important for us to really receive insight into how our world is operating, how we're handling the situation. And there's some things that we're going to touch on tonight that I really believe is going to be a blessing to all of us. I want to stay here for a little bit because all of you all have mentioned some incredible points and have provided different vantage points for us to really consider when we're dealing with this issue that really is creating a demand for change to happen. And though it may not seem to be happening as quick as we would like for it to, we are taking the strides that are necessary to go in that direction. Let's bring this now to, let's bring this into context for ministry. How dangerous is it for us as ministers of the gospel to become so spiritually minded that we have not educated ourselves in things that are happening within the world, and our go-to response is, and this is not to say it is true. It is true. Jesus is the answer, but we use that for the lack of becoming well-versed or even knowledgeable in other things, even to the point where we're not willing to engage in social activism or participate, even if we're not on the streets. I'm not going to demonize anybody that hasn't been on the streets protesting. That may not be how you fight. You might be using other means of influence to do that. But how dangerous is it for us to over spiritualize matters that we really should be that we should be addressing from more than just the spiritual perspective, if that question makes any kind of sense? Anybody can take it.
The first thing that came to my mind when you asked that, Cameron, is that, to me, if we as ministers miss the opportunity to recognize the human experience, then I feel like we inevitably dehumanize ourselves, right? We're taking away the fact that we are natural beings in this world, and absolutely we have a whole spiritual component, but we are still walking on the ground. When you jump up, you don't fly up to heaven, your feet come right back to this ground. And it's here in this realm that we're having to exist and move through. And so if we miss the opportunity to support somebody, to open the door for conversation, to allow for emotional expression, or just processing through, making sense of what's going on, then we're kind of dehumanizing and minimizing that human experience that people are having. And I think that can just be harmful, because that's just like you trying to take a piece of my context away from me. You're trying to take a piece of me away. You're not addressing the whole me. And unfortunately, we might miss a piece of somebody, and that may be a turnoff.
Wow. Anybody else that wants to jump in? Yes, go ahead.
I'll jump in on that. Because Lee took out of my mouth what I was going to say, but I'll add this thing to that. I feel like you're basically saying you don't care about me, because if you're only making it about my spirit man, if I'm hungry, if I'm homeless, if I have these challenges and you're not addressing those components that make up who I am as a person, then you're basically saying, I don't care about you. Because even Jesus, when he ministered, he met natural needs and then he dealt with spirituality.
Yep.
Because if I'm hungry, I can't hear your scriptures. I can't hear your sermon. I need my situation that's a natural situation to be addressed. And I feel like right now, since the pandemic, we have super spiritualized every single thing. And I ain't going to open up the can of worms, but this COVID-19 situation, we've made this a spiritual battle, attack on the church, everything else. And I'm just like, come on. Some of this stuff is just natural things that happen down here that has nothing to do with your faith. It has nothing to do with how saved you are. It has nothing to do with if your life is right. It's just simple. These things happen. We're going to have these experiences. And if you choose to ignore my pain, if you choose to ignore my suffering, why would I want to hear your sermon? Why would I want you to be my pastor? Why would I want you ministering to me? You could keep that sermon because right now I'm hurting and you basically said, I don't care about you. So here's a sermon, here's a message. No one wants that. We have to have more compassion. It's a lack of compassion if we ignore the suffering that's happening to a human being.
Dr. Ray, yes.
You know, when I'm thinking about the damage and, you know, just the danger of kind of over spiritualizing things, I think of the ethical implications of it. You know, we're ministers of the gospel, but if we allow our egos in any way to get in the way of us really pointing people in the right direction to get the help that they need, because we want to be the superhero and we allow ourselves to begin to operate outside of our scopes of expertise, we're costing people a lot of time. We're costing people, we're causing people to have their faith chipped away at, because when they keep coming to God and you keep making it a spiritual issue and nothing is changing, they start to lose faith, not only in you, but in God, because God's not doing anything. When the truth of the matter is, God has provided a solution. It just may not be in you. You know, oftentimes I think of the scripture that says it's not good for man to be alone, and people kind of ascribe that to marriage only. But when I think of that scripture, I think of interdependence. God made us in a way that in order for things to get done and for reproduction to take place and for people to produce, you have to realize you cannot do it by yourself. God created us in a way that we don't have it all in one person, in us. So we need other people. We need to learn how to be independent. And until preachers, leaders learn how to reach out to people who have what they don't, people will stay stuck in the same situation they've always been in. So it's an ethical issue for me. If I know that I'm not trained to handle a situation with a client, I need to refer. If I do not refer, I am conducting myself in an unethical way regarding this patient.
Man, oh my goodness. Anybody else that want to add some more? Yes, yes.
Yeah, I want to piggyback a little bit on that, because just when you were talking, Rayvan, I was thinking about how when this pandemic kind of first started and some churches started to go virtual, some were still having sessions and stuff. And I just saw a lot of people that were being super judgmental about those who might have been afraid to go out for whatever reason. You know, those people that are stockpiling and getting all the toilet paper, like, you don't know what's going on in their world or what they're dealing with. And so to then make it a judgment of your faith, now I am basically saying your faith isn't strong enough because you don't believe enough, you're not coming out to service, you're not doing things like you used to, then somehow we're demonizing people for being afraid of the unknown. And that is so natural. Everybody, I don't care if it's pandemic or if it's someone who's pregnant about to have a baby, it is a fear of an unknown.
Right.
And that's such a natural process to have kind of that natural fear, because we're not familiar with the situation. And so to then spiritualize it and make it a test of my faith, it puts to me, doubt in somebody that can make somebody feel ashamed. And again, now I'm wondering, since my leadership or my fellow congregation seems to be judging me, is God judging me? Now, does God believe that my faith is strong enough? Is my faith strong enough? Now I'm questioning my relationship with God. And so I think we just have to be cautious about how we judge someone in their actions. Maybe it is an anxiety that they have. Maybe it's because I got asthma, or I've got a kiddo who's got, immune compromise, so I can't go out. So don't judge me, because I'm cautious. We don't judge people for wearing seatbelts. Those have been around for quite some time. You get on a skateboard, you put on a helmet, no one's judging that. So these precautions that we're taking, I don't think should be judged in the way that they are now, putting like a faith element on them as well. I just think that can be judgy.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Now this shifts things, and I want to move now beyond just the scope of the racial discrimination and social injustice, but I want to ask kind of an open-ended. It's specific, but it can be applied to any situation. What is the best approach for one, because you all are ministers? All of these guests that we have here, to the viewing audience, they are not just professionals in the area of mental health and have credentials upon credentials to specialize in that area. They are also preachers of the gospel. Don't get it twisted. So questions that we're asking are not just mental health related, but they are also ministry related. So they're well equipped. They have their license and credentials even in ministry. So how should we then, or what is the best approach to ministering to those who are curious, who have questions about what we're preaching? I think one of the things that we sometimes fail to do is really, Dr. Malakia Brown alluded to this earlier, the compassion element. Jesus had so many critics that were opposed to what he was saying. Some were opposed because they truly just thought that what he was saying was stuff that was off the wall, had nothing to do with the traditional standard or the religious culture, the Hebraic law system, and all of those things. He was so out of the box in many ways. But then there were others that asked because they really wanted to have more insight, which you have Nicodemus in John 3. So what is the best approach for those who do not agree with everything that we have to say when we're preaching the gospel? Because sometimes even for us, we're still human, and so we want people to believe everything we're saying. But what is the best way for us, especially if we receive feedback, like a message or a conversation, and someone said, I don't really agree with that? Do we just go off the deep end, or what is the best approach to dealing with those type of matters? Dr. Key, you're laughing.
Ray is laughing.
Take it first. You take it first.
Because I have this dialogue in my head that I have to decide whether I'm going to let it out or not.
Let it out.
But as you were talking, the first thing that came to my mind was, we have leaders, we have churches, we have ministers that they're quick to say, I want to draw the doctor, and I want to draw the lawyer, and I want to draw the professional to my ministry. And I listen to them, and sometimes I say to myself, they're not ready for an individual who's a critical thinker. They're not ready for critical thinkers. That's the bottom line.
About it.
The first thing that we need to do as ministers, there are two things that stand out to me. First, we need to be secure. A lot of us minister from an insecure places. We're trying to prove something to somebody. We're trying to master something that maybe we didn't master before. We're trying to convince ourselves of our levels of competence. You need to have all that together before you get on a stage and in a platform and under a spotlight and want to minister to people like folk are non-thinking people. Okay, because the moment you put yourself in the spotlight, you subject yourself to scrutiny.
Yep.
Stop saying you want to be great and not want to be criticized or not want to be asked a question. The second thing is, I feel like we need to spend a lot more time talking about emotional intelligence. Because when you are triggered by somebody's question in a way that leads you to display a type of emotion that would run them away or make them shut down or make them not want to ask you another question again, then there's an issue with your emotional intelligence. I'm sorry. You know, when Jesus ministered to people, they questioned him. The woman at the well questioned him. Nicodemus questioned him. He had such a level of emotional intelligence that some of us would have been like, if they had said that to me, I would have been like, I don't have to talk to you anyway. I'm doing you a favor. You know, I didn't pick out the things that you do wrong up to this point. You better be glad I didn't pick that out. You know, those types of things. There's something wrong with your emotional intelligence. You do not have a grip on it. And if you're going to be a good minister, you have to have that emotional intelligence down pat. You need to be able to identify what feelings are going on internally for you and be able to manage them so you can give people an opportunity to learn what they want to learn from you. And stop thinking that people want to catch you and embarrass you and downsize you. No, people don't have time to do that. If you can't answer my question, then I don't need to be a part of your ministry. Bottom line.
Oh my God.
And I would rather you tell me, you know what, Dr. Key, that's a great question, but I don't know the answer. I'll go research it, look it up, and see what I come up with, and I'll get back to you. Hold on to that thought. That is emotional intelligence. But we have people, ministers, leaders who are so ego-driven and so insecure, they will make something up to tell you.
Yeah.
Just so they can hold on to the reputation they think they have.
Oh my God. Anybody wanted to, like, why?
That's it's okay. It's okay. I'll tag on that. I was going to say something similar. It's their identity is basically wrapped up in them being a preacher. So when you ask a question, it's like you're tackling or attacking who they are as a person. And the question is not that. The person just wants to know more to be more informed. And then another part of me says that maybe they don't know the answer because they just regurgitated what they've been told over the time that they've been in church or what they've heard. They've never actually looked that information up. So now they don't have an answer for you. And because they're a leader, they don't want to look like they're not in charge or they don't know or in control. So they give you this energy that's like, how dare you question me? And I feel like as a leader, number one, if you're a minister, the preaching is the least of what you do. Like, that's like a small part of what you do. You're a teacher first. Well, you're a servant first because you should be serving the people, but you're definitely a teacher. And if you can't teach, which means you have to go in depth, you have to spend some time in detail on particular points that you're talking about, then don't get behind a pulpit to preach. Because, and this may be me because I am a teacher, not only professionally, but that's something that I do in ministry. I'm over the Christian education department at our church. It's important that people dissect and get better understanding. And I'm with Ray. If I don't know, if my students ask me and I don't know, I say, you know what, that's a good question. I don't want to give you the wrong answer or guess. So let me get back to you with an answer. But I'm secure in myself too. So that's one of those things that you can be great and still have flaws. It does not mean that you're not great at what you do. Like, and I'll give you a sports analogy. And y'all know, anybody who knows me knows I love basketball. Like, I'm a huge basketball fan. Y'all know I love the Lakers. Okay. But I look at Kobe Bryant with all the things that people said about him and even the flaws that he had. You could not tell Kobe Bryant that he was not one of the greatest people to lace up and play the game of basketball. It didn't matter what you said. He was secure in who he was, but he was also willing to teach and help other people who wanted to be better at what they were doing. So if a person at that height of their professional career could be willing to make phone calls randomly to people to say, hey, I saw your game. Let me give you some tips on what you can do for the next game. Then why can't we do that if we're called to be servants unto the body of Christ, unto humanity in general? We should be secure in doing that. To me, I feel like it's a compliment to you that they trust you enough that they feel like you would even know the answer. Well, let me go to Ray, or let me go to Lee, or let me go to Cameron, because I know they're knowledgeable and they're going to give me the information that I'm looking for. Or if they don't know, they'll point me to a resource that is going to help me get the answer. It's really a compliment, but your insecurities are making you take it as an attack. And I don't feel like that is what a person is doing when they're asking you a question.
Right. Oh my goodness. Lee, did you want to, because I was going to ask you to jump in.
Yeah, I think that it's just, we've missed the opportunity to have someone else come up in the ranks, right? To me, this is someone who has a healthy curiosity, who's desiring to learn. We've all been in that place. To me, that's how we were able to even answer this call that we had, is because we were curious about, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What does this word mean to me? How can I help other people? And so that healthy curiosity, if we kind of shun that away because we don't want to be questioned in my thoughts or my ethic, then I think that we're really just missing an opportunity to kind of cultivate a young mind or an older mind, whoever it is. You're missing the opportunity to have someone be a successor or someone to continue to grow in their own calling, and you be a part of that process. Like, to me, that's an honor even within the counseling room, is that I get to walk this journey out with you. So to miss that as a leader, I feel like that it just kind of goes against, to me, what leadership is all about. I'm supposed to be kind of helping the next generation or helping those around me get to be in their best self. But if I can't let my insecurities go to help somebody else, well, then that kind of shows really, again, the level of emotional, emotional capacity that I have, and how I really probably need to step back. I need to do my own growth and look at myself. What is it about this healthy curiosity of someone else that besets me so? So that's just my little piece of the pie.
Okay, I'm allowing this conversation to unfold. Ray, I know you got something. Did you want to have?
No.
Okay. I'm letting I'm letting this conversation organically flow, because I'm taking it in, and I really feel that there's a pulse that we're tapping into now in this conversation, and I really want to help someone who's been like me. This issue then begins to move over into the whole realm of mentorship, and I kind of want to go there now. I want to talk about mentorship because there's somebody in ministry, young minister, maybe you've been in ministry for a little while, and you're struggling with things that you feel that we've talked about insecurity. Some of the insecurity that we feel is because from the perspective of the minister, we don't feel that we are equipped to handle certain things, or we attempt to handle certain things based on the way we've seen it done. And there's this cyclical effect that is happening to where we're repeating what we've seen our fathers and mothers do. And because they did it that way, we're now doing this way. But there's an issue because the mentorship aspect, we're emulating or we're copying, we're mimicking what we see done, but we don't have that proper cultivation that is necessary in order for us to be our best selves. So I want to shift now to this element of mentorship, because there's a young preacher I know who's watching right now. I'm just confident of it. I don't know the name, but there's someone that is dealing with, I need more. And I'm not getting more because I'm afraid to fully embrace what I've been called to do, but I don't have the proper guidance or direction that I'm needing. And if I'm in a house that is not coming from, mm-hmm. How do I move forward? If I'm not getting it from where I'm at, what do you say to the person that is dealing with that situation right now? Anybody can take it.
Well, I would definitely encourage the person to talk to God, mm-hmm. And to ask God to allow his or her path to cross those that could mentor him or her.
Okay.
I would not encourage them to just sit around waiting mm-hmm. for somebody to come along and say, hey, I'm going to mentor you. If you know that you're in need of something, don't be afraid to go out and pursue it. Go after it. Observe and take note of those who are going the direction you're trying to go, and who have the qualities you want to have, and who have the impact that you're looking to have in your ministry. And don't be afraid to introduce yourself and say, hey, you have something that I believe I need. And before you go to that person, just pray and say, Lord, if this is a person that can and is willing to mentor me, speak to them too before I get to them. So when I show up, they'll know I came because of you. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? But I don't think that we need to kind of, become prideful and feel like, well, if I don't have a mentor or if somebody doesn't see something in me and approach me, then I'll just figure this out all by myself. Like I stated before, you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. And there are many lessons that happen that are not demonstrated while a person is in a pulpit. Okay. I've been a mentor. I've had individuals attached to me who traveled with me, who saw me when I wasn't on my best day, who saw me demonstrate emotional intelligence when I was treated the wrong way. There are lessons. It's almost like discipleship. There are lessons that mentors are able to give because they open up their lives and allow a level of vulnerability to those who are following them to see into them, into their lives, so that human factor that we talked about, that's where you get to really see whether a minister is human or not. Because if every time I see you is on the pulpit and everything in the building is slain, you're going to make me feel like to attain to that level is going to be very difficult because you don't appear human to me. But if I can get into a mentoring relationship with you, then I'll realize that, hey, you do get upset when your favorite type of ice cream is not there. You do get upset. You do get frustrated when you can't park as close as you want to park to the front of the building. You know what I'm saying? And what do I do with that? It didn't rob me of my anointing. It didn't take away my ministry. It didn't make me less than. What it did was make me human, and it just gives me a greater respect for the power of Christ that rests upon you because of your infirmities, mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Drop it.
Drop it. Yeah, I was even going to say.
Go ahead, Lee.
You sure?
No, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was even just thinking about like, how do we even find ourselves in the position where we're almost afraid to reach out to a mentor and kind of like pivoting from what Dr. Key said. And I remember actually, Dr. Key, you were teaching about like the cultures that we can develop within our own ministries and as far as like pastorship and things of that nature, where we can develop cultures where people are afraid to even make a mistake.
Oh.
They're afraid to ask a question. Like they're afraid to, to preach the sermon or to mess it up or to even put themselves out there in a vulnerable position because you might call them out or belittle them or kind of leave them out there hanging. And so I think that, from that standpoint, as leaders, we have to be cautious that we are not expecting perfection. People are constantly learning and growing, and that's including the leader and those they are leading, those mentees. So we just have to be cautious that we're always giving people grace, giving people room to grow and make mistakes. To me, the best times I learned were after I flopped severely and we're able to then pick back up, recognize what I did, recognize where I needed to improve, and then could get back on that horse and try again with that same support from that mentor. I think that that's really important, is that that even if I am flawed, you still care about me. Again, we see that radiating from Jesus. We see that from God all the time, that despite our flaws, we are still valuable. We still have a purpose, and we're still called to do what we're here to do. And so I guess, again, to kind of pivot, as leaders, we have to be cautious that we're not setting up this culture of perfection, right? This isn't the production at all times. We're not on all the time. That's not realistic. And to be able to allow someone to see behind the scenes, just like Dr. Key is saying, to see behind the scenes and see that I can be fallible and still be purposeful and effective.
Yes.
That right there, that's where confidence is built. That's where you do get someone who can be bold in God and continue to blaze through, even if they do fumble, but they're still on the journey. So
amazing. Go ahead, Dr.
So I'll jump in. One of the things I will say is that if you don't have a mentor, you need to know who you are when it comes to the ministry that you're called to, in order to identify who you feel like would be the best to impart into you. So I feel like the first thing is, okay, well, what am I called to do? Am I called to minister to young people? Am I called to minister to women? Am I called to minister to men? Am I called to minister to XYZ group? You have to know what your calling is so that you can identify a person that you feel like will be the best person to pour into you in that particular area. The other thing is use technology. It's not like when I was younger and I was growing up, the mentor had to be physically in my church because we didn't have social media, we didn't have Skype, we didn't have any of that. You can be a mentor now from a distance. I mentor someone that lives in Michigan, and we've had a mentor-mentee relationship for years, to the point where we do personal things together. It's not about necessarily just supporting her in her spiritual endeavors or her professional endeavors. Like, it's her birthday, or it's Christmas and she graduated from college. Like, these are the things that I connect to them on. And I mentor people even at my local church. But the thing I love doing with them is just being human with them, having fun, talking about the things from the day to day. I feel like that opens them up. So then now when you're trying to help them and guide them in their spiritual life or in their ministry life, they're like, okay, I get it. I have to have a balance of understanding who I am from a natural side and making sure I take care of that part of me. And that will give me the foundation to be able to be healthy when it comes to ministry. Because I do agree with Lee that we are so super spiritual that we only focus on that as mentors in the religious arena, when you don't realize that them just seeing you be fallible, you make a mistake, you laugh it off and not feel like you have to be perfect, allows them to feel comfortable in their own skin on their journey in their ministry, to be able to say, okay, I messed up, but that's okay. What can I learn from this? And let me move on. Because they may not be able to get to their pastor that way, right? Some churches, there's not an environment where you can connect with your pastor as a young minister in that aspect, but the mentor is that person that's close to them, that they know that they can reach them and be vulnerable with that person. And so I think it's really important to allow your humanity to show, because let's be real, you're not at home quoting scriptures, communicating with your family, or, you're not out going to dinner quoting scriptures to each other. That's not what we do. Like, you watch TV, you go to sporting events, you go to concerts and all the different things we do. Allow them to see your human side, because I feel like that speaks volumes, because they probably are insecure in a lot of different areas when it comes to their ministry. They're unsure, they're new. And when they see that part of you, they're like, okay, I'm going to be okay, because I see where they're at now. And they've told me what their journey was like. So I know that I'm on the right path. I just need to keep taking in the tools and the information that I need to get to that point that I want to get to.
That's phenomenal. All right.
There's
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something.
Yes.
Because we've spoken from the perspective of the mentee, but for the mentor, I feel like good mentors and even good pastors are developmental in nature. We have a lot of people that are calling folk mentors for the sake of just saying, that's my mentor. There's no development taking place between those two individuals, because you show up every time they preach and you shake their hand or you held their Bible. That is not
right. But they can't call you after that.
There is a level of tolerance that a pastor and a mentor has to have while their mentee is making mistakes but getting better. Lee, you mentioned
say that again. Hold up, bro. Say that again.
I said there's a level of tolerance that a mentor and a good mentor, a good pastor has to have while their mentee is making mistakes in the process of getting better. So if you've created a culture of perfection and production and performance, people that are super gifted but undeveloped will never get to the place where they ought to be, because you keep putting the person up there that's going to make your ministry look good.
Right.
Because your reputation is tied to how it looks.
Because it's about you. It's not about them. It's about you.
listen, as counselors and preachers, especially as counselors, what we had to do in our schooling is we had to counsel people, videotape it, and play our video in front of the class while the class and the teacher critiqued our video and asked us why we asked, what we did, why we moved our leg, what direction were we going. We had to deal with that. But somebody had to be willing to tolerate that type of counseling at that level and let us in a room with a real person with the door closed.
Jeez.
And not take it personal if we messed up.
Right.
So for those mentors and pastors out there that want to be good ones, if you want to find the diamonds in the rough, you've got to work on your level of tolerance frustration.
Jeez.
You know, you got to be able to tolerate. You got to be able to hear that bad note for a couple of months. You got to be able to hear that bad chord for a couple of months. You got to be able to hear that kind of disorganized message for a couple of months until the person gets it together. That requires you to see beyond where a person is.
Yep.
Wow.
So that's what I want.
And don't forget where you came from. I think that's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Don't forget where you came from, because we were all a mess the first time we preached a message.
Right.
Like if we were to flash back to the very first messages we preached, they were not as polished as what we're putting out right now. Let's just be real. We were stumbling. We were nervous. We couldn't get stuff together. It was all disjointed all over the place. Don't feel like as a mentor you've arrived and there's not more development that you need to do. As a professional, whether it's in mental health, whatever career field you're in, professional development is ongoing. Like you have to do that because there's always new stuff that you have to learn. As a minister and as a mentor, there's always something that you can learn. I teach professionally and I always learn something from my students, and they're sitting paying their money to sit in front of me to get information from me. And I never leave a class, never, without learning something from them, because I'm open to know that, number one, I don't know everything, and that everybody brings something to the table. So yes, it may be a train wreck, but you were a train wreck. I remember when I took homiletics, and my dad was my teacher, so let's just add that to it. We had to, and he was the most critical person. Bishop Michael J. Garrett was the most critical person. But he made us preach our final. Our final was a preach sermon of X amount of minutes, and it was recorded. And we had to watch it as an entire class together and critique what you did. And sometimes you knew it was terrible. Like you knew before you saw the video, it was bad. But what I think it did, number one, it built camaraderie amongst us, because we all got to see that everybody is not perfect. We all have something we need to work on. The other part of it was like, if I can get over this embarrassment, if I mess up, or like,
listen,
that's nothing.
I don't need an
that's
amen.
Nothing. No,
I don't need an amen.
You can never say amen. I know what I said was good, whatever. Like, okay, moving on, you know. But I just think that we have gotten to a place where the church has become a production. It's not about the people anymore. It's not even about the message that we say we preach. It's become a production. It's so polished. It's like sometimes I look at stuff, I'm like, why is it so shiny? Like, what's really going on? Like literally, no mistakes, no bad notes, no bad chords, no scriptures out of context. I'm like, what's really going on? You know, like, what is this? Because I feel like our flaws is what allow people who are not church cultured to want to come into the building or ask questions about the message that we're preaching. We've made it prohibitive for people to want to come into the church because they don't know how to dress, or they don't know when to raise their hands, or they don't know when it's appropriate to talk back. Like they don't know what to do in the culture because we've made it so shiny and such a production that it's been prohibitive, and it's almost reprehensible to some people when you tell them that you're a Christian. Oh, yeah. And we're doing it to ourselves as well.
Oh my God. Yeah. This, Lord, y'all.
I just have to say too.
Go ahead, Lee.
I apologize.
We're here now. We're here. No, come on.
But I think it also means that as the mentee, I have to come in with a level of humility, because I don't know necessarily what I'm doing either, right? I've seen those that try to come in as new ministers and they're trying to do the hoop and the whole nine. And it's like, sir, ma'am, sat down. Okay, have several seats, please, and thank you, because you're not there yet. And that is okay to start at the beginning. Before we as counselors got to sit in front of people as interns, I had to start with helping skills. And my first skill that I had to do for a week is parroting. Parroting is when I repeat back to you what you said with one word, the last word you might have said. That's all I could do. I had to start at the beginning and then build my skills until I was to the point where I could be an intern and sit in front of somebody else. So I think that we also have to remember it's okay to start at the beginning and have humble beginnings. Be teachable. Go ahead and be coachable. Don't feel like you have to get out of the gates knowing this thing and being the next TD Jakes or something. Like it's not, you're not there yet. And to me, it kind of then does kind of make a mentor kind of feel like, hold your horses, sir or ma'am. You're getting ahead of yourself. You think you're big britches. You need to sit down a little bit and learn. So I think you can see it from both sides where the mentor and the mentee have to have a level of humility for that relationship to be harmonious and for everybody to grow.
Amen.
You're muted, bro.
My bad. Hallelujah. We have a question from the audience. We actually have a couple of questions, and one of the questions goes back to a subject that we dealt with earlier. But for those of you that are joining the audience, listen, we have qualified voices that they're not just anointed, gifted, can preach the paint off of walls or the walls of your house, since we're dealing with this pandemic. But either way, they are credentialed, they have their degrees and license and everything, even in the field of mental health, and they are phenomenal. And I would encourage you, bring them to your churches, get them there. I promise you they will be a blessing. Listen, I'm not going to put my name on anything I don't believe in. I promise you they will bless the members that have been assigned to your leadership. I promise you. But I want you to sow. Those of you that can sow tonight, I'm asking everyone that can at least $20. I want you to go to $ Cash App, $IPYPU. $IPYPU, hashtag, put this in the memo section so that we can make sure that the funds are allocated to the right place. Hashtag YMA HM, the number 2. All right, hashtag YMA HM, the number 2. All right, we have a question from the audience. The other question we'll bring back at the end because it's another subject. Since we've been talking about seeking excellence and talking about development, the question is, so what's the balance between seeking excellence and allowing development? What is the balance between the two? Anyone can take it.
I'll start with that. I think the balance, well, number one, the seeking excellence means you have a standard. Right. No one should want to embark on anything and be mediocre. I don't think anyone sets out to be a mediocre singer or a mediocre preacher or a mediocre, whatever your profession, lawyer. No one wants to be mediocre. So I think the seeking excellence is the standard or the bar that you have. But understand that you don't jump out the door being excellent. No one is just going to roll into a pulpit and then automatically, preach paint off the walls, as Cameron likes to use as his example. That doesn't happen. And the people that you are basically aspiring to be, that you look up to, they didn't come out the gate looking like that. We all had to go through development. So have your standards. I always say, we have 1 year, 5 year, 10-year plans for our natural lives. We have it for our business lives and professional lives. You should also have that as a minister. What is your 1-year goal with your ministry? What is your 5-year goal with your ministry? What is your 10-year goal with your ministry? You need to set the boundaries and the standards of what you want to meet and milestones. So that's your gaining or desiring excellence, but allow yourself to develop into that. We all started at the beginning. I know for me, any minister that came out of our church, there were certain classes you had to take before you could step in a pulpit. You had to take Old and New Testament. You had to take apostolic doctrine. You had to take homiletics 1 and 2. You had to take hermeneutics. And then once my dad thought that you had enough foundation, we all had the same thing, now you can get in a pulpit and preach, because he's done his job as a leader to at least give you something to start the development on the journey. Now, what you become is a part of your personality. Don't try to be somebody else, because we don't need another TD Jakes. We don't need another Bishop Noel Jones. We don't need another Bishop C. Sean Tyson. And I love all of these people. Bishop Jones is one of my favorite preachers, and Bishop Tyson, same thing, but we don't need another them. We need you to be you. So as you're developing, figure out who you are. The best thing you can do is be self-aware. If you're not a hooper, you don't have to hoop to be effective. One of my mentors, and you do not have to hoop to be effective. Some of you people are hooping that shouldn't, and it's actually counterproductive. So just stop. But one of my mentors in ministry, she was my mentor as a choir director because that was what she did before she was called to the ministry. And then as a minister, now she is still my mentor. She is so prolific that she does not hoop at all. Like, that's not her personality. And when I tell you, she destroys the scriptures, like she breaks it down in a way that this is when I knew she was otherworldly with it. She had to preach her mother. She had to eulogize her mother, and they were on a time limit. She had 3 minutes to eulogize her mom, 3. And when I tell you, she destroyed that eulogy in 3 minutes, didn't hoop, didn't quote a whole bunch of scriptures, but she made it so relatable that everybody left there and was still to this day talking about what she talked about when it came to her mother and the life and the journey that she lived. But she knows who she is. You have to know who you are, because a carbon copy, we don't need any more carbon copies, because that means the you that you are, that void is there because you're not operating in the space that was designed for you. So know who you are and make sure that you understand, I have a standard, but I'm going to develop into what I'm supposed to be in totality. And that development is until you leave here. You will continue to be better and better and grow as you are going along your journey when it comes to your ministry. That's my 2 cents, whatever you want to call it.
Go ahead, Ray. I see you want to jump in, man.
Yeah, I just want to say, for whoever asked that question, to be developmental is not to compromise excellence. All right. I don't want you to feel like you're either developmental or you operate in excellence. That's not what we're talking about here. I feel like being developmental ought to be part of the fabric of your ministry model. If your church is not developmental in nature, it won't have a strategy to funnel people through the process, the pipeline of beginner to expert. All right. So that means that, if you're part of a ministry or you're the head of a ministry, everything might not be televised. Everything might not be live streamed. What people do in the ministry, it may just be for the house at home where they're getting the support while they're being built up. But you have to have a strategy for that. It can't just be, we just have service, and every service that we have it's a production for everybody outside to see. Not so, because I believe that the disciples were practicing casting out demons and healing, and it's not written in the Bible. All right. And when Jesus publicly said, hey, you of little faith, it wasn't because they hadn't tried before. He didn't show them. He felt like they could have done it by now. Okay. So he was developmental, but everything doesn't have to be live streamed up front in the spotlight for everybody to see, because you also run the risk of destroying people's self-esteem if you put them out there too early. I know people who run away from ministry, who are bona fide called to ministry because somebody saw a gift that they wanted to use and push, and the timing was off.
Good God.
They were not developed in a safe space. So make sure that you're part of a ministry, or you're leading a ministry that has development as part of the fabric of its ministry model.
Wow. I saw someone who just left a comment, and it's a very powerful comment, and it's relevant to what we've been talking about. The person said, I think some try to imitate others accidentally because they don't see too many different styles. Not seeing different styles will make you second guess your delivery. And I think this is the conversation, let me just be real, that I needed when I was a kid, to help alleviate some of the work that I chose to do. I was a little different. I was a little odd. So I had to do my own research to figure out what worked better for me based on what I was willing to investigate, different styles and different approaches. I think sometimes the issue, we deal with those who we have been assigned to, who were the outliers in their home churches, who then try to come into an environment where they're now responsible for cultivating others who are coming under them to then take on the same style they have. And then you have those that come in who remind you of where you come from that you didn't have. And now there's an issue because the environment where you were the black sheep. Now you've created other sheeps that are now like you. And now another person comes in, reminds you of where you came from, where you were the black sheep. And now this person is the black sheep and is sometimes dealing with the struggle of maybe my gift, maybe my ministry is not necessary because I don't fit in and my style does not match others. And so they're forced, it's good in a way because it forces them to then learn versatility with their presentation in ministry or preaching or teaching, but also there's still that underlying frustration that I'm trying to almost downplay my gift or my anointing or the way I do it because I don't want to offend others for doing it this way. So here we're dealing with a creativity being stifled. And I want you all, before we get to this last question, I want us to talk about the creativity, the uniqueness that sometimes we deal with. I really wish we had more time because I want to get into the insecurity factor more. I want to deal with the fear of being adequate and good enough. And if we can, we maybe based on your responses, we can probably tackle these things in a brief way. But that just means now we have a part 3 that we're gonna have to plan for. And those of you that want part 3, I need to hear you back. I need you to put in the comment section. We want more. That's all I want, just those 3 words. We want more. And if you want more, I'm gonna make sure that the leadership team and I are gonna work to get these guests back for part 3. If not this year, the beginning of next year, but they said they're here, they're ready for it. So we're gonna try to get it in again this year. But deal with that, the creativity that is being stifled, because it almost could bring me to tears because I feel it. I feel it because I've lived through it. The creativity, somebody's creativity, their uniqueness, the way God called them, the way God prepared them and how God called them to do it, they feel insecure. Somebody just speak to that right now and deal with it, because there's so many elements to this. There's the spiritual, but also the emotional side. Just help that person. Anybody.
So I want to talk to this because I understand what being the misfit is. I've been that misfit since I know what I am. So I'm actually secure in being a misfit. But one of the things I had to do was find other misfits that have now been able to mainstream themselves, not changing who they are, but they've been able to mainstream themselves depending on the situation. We code switch. As Black people, we code switch, right? Professionally. Sometimes in ministry, you got to code switch. You have to know when this is what you need to present because of the environment, and when this is when I can just be who I am. I can be relaxed, I can be my personality, but part of that is making sure that, number one, you're secure in the fact that you're different, and that's okay. And I feel like a lot of times, especially in our churches, the apostolic churches, we feel like it has to look one way. If you don't hoop, then you are not effective, you didn't preach, sit down. And the person that gets up and has a teaching style ministry, we look at them like, why are you here? You know, we're bored. No, don't come to our council. We don't want you preaching to us. So you have to have a security in yourself. And being a misfit is not a bad thing, because I guarantee you that that misfit is called to speak to a group of misfits that need to understand that their circumstances can be changed because look at me, my life was changed. And so I think for me, the greatest thing that I had was, number one, I had mentors that allowed me to be who I was, and they allowed me to work through my stuff. They saw me be insecure. They saw me doubt myself, and they still encouraged me in the midst of that. They never let me go. When I had those moments, they held on tighter. So when I was feeling insecure, when I was wanting to give up, they clung to me even more so during those moments. And they also, again, that intimacy with mentorship, they allowed me to see the raw parts of themselves. So I start to become more comfortable in that. And then as I walk the journey in ministry, as I walk the journey professionally, I started to be more comfortable with being who I was. Everybody is not going to be a robe, collar preacher. Like I already said, I'm not buying a clergy collar. It's probably never going to happen for me. That's not my personality. That's just me. Do I own a robe? Yes. And I only own it because as a woman, it's just a lot easier to put that on and then put your clothes back on afterwards. But that's not my personality. And I had to start to be comfortable in that and have mentors that continue to reinforce, be who you are. You are a voice to be heard. Your voice is necessary. You have value. What you are saying is valuable. And that eventually will encourage you to be creative in your presentation. I also feel like your time in the game, the amount of time that you put into your ministry, the amount of time you put into your profession will start to pay off dividends. If you're not investing in yourself and figuring out how you want to deliver what it is you're called to deliver, it will always be stagnant and you'll always feel left out. And the reality is that no matter what environment you're in, somebody will always be offended. So it's not your goal to offend, but someone will always be offended. Someone will not like you. Someone will take offense to something that's not really a big deal. You have to be comfortable in that and know that you can't please everybody, but you have to be uniquely you. I feel like our uniqueness is beautiful. It's what makes us as a body of Christ so powerful because we are not all the same. And God didn't create us to be all the same. So I just encourage you to, number one, be comfortable in your own skin and know how to code switch. Don't be like, okay, I'm radical, so I'm never going to be traditional. There are times when you do need to be traditional, but don't allow that to be your personality. Just know in this particular setting, I need to be that. But otherwise, I'm going to be traditional in a very Malika way. So I'll be traditional, but you're going to still get pieces of me. You're going to see the radical parts of me in the midst of me being traditional. I feel like you can do both of those things simultaneously.
Lee, come on and jump in because there's a question in the audience for Dr. Brown. I want to make sure I get that question before we get off of here at 9:30. So, but Minister Lee, feel free, jump on in. Come on.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback off of that. And I think that, this has to do with like an identity formation. I know for me, I was lucky enough that, and maybe not lucky, however you want to look at it, but I was afforded the opportunity to learn and grow as a minister without like this comparison game, because I didn't grow up in this type of ministry. And so when it came to me trying to figure out what kind of a minister am I was able to kind of look into myself and figure out the why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, why am I called? And what does that mean in my life? And how do I want to ensure that I'm delivering what God has for me? And so sometimes I think that if we maybe have grown up in an atmosphere where we're supposed to be emulating the leadership ahead of us, we kind of miss that identity formation. And now we're just trying to be, again, a carbon copy. We're just trying to emulate. We're trying to be like them. But then we even have to then think about, well, why am I doing that? Like, is it because you see that they're being liked and they're being well received and you would like to be well received? And so again, it's that constant like checking yourself about why is it that I'm doing the things that I do, and then allowing that to kind of guide your development. And then as you, just like Dr. Brown said, find the mentors that allow you to be authentically who you are, then you can begin to get comfortable and confident in that level of delivery or ministry or what have you. But I think it's about kind of getting back to like this stifling of creativity. Maybe you might have to have that moment where you just kind of step back and do that soul searching. Why, what is my reasoning for doing this? Why did God call me? What were the things in my life that I went through that allowed me to be where I am today? How can I draw on some of those things to highlight the uniqueness in me, to show me the population I should be kind of targeting in my messages or in my outreach or whatever type of ministry you have, and then becoming confident in that, being uniquely and authentically who you are. God made you who you are. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to be searching your heart for your intent. If your intent was to be liked by others, then you're missing your mark. He's going to search out, why is it that you did the things that you did? And so if you don't take the time to do that, you're going to get to those pearly gates and he's going to be like, I don't even know you. What are you doing? What were you up to? That's not who I asked you to be. It's not what I asked you to do. So it's worth the time to, again, have several seats and figure out what is it and who is it that I need to be so that I can be walking in my purpose as I'm going through my ministry.
Powerful. Dr. Key, the last question I'm going to give to you, but there's a question for Dr. Brown. The question says, and this kind of shifts gears a little bit, and this is perfect because we're going to shift gears with some questions, and these are the last two questions. This is for you, Dr. Malakia. Are you able to find balance as a PK, and have you ever felt like your ministry in church turned into loyalty?
As a PK, obligation. So there's an obligation that comes when your parents are the pastors of the church. And obligation is a very powerful thing because it pushes you to feel a demand that's not necessarily spoken. You don't have in your mind the option to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. So one of the things I will say this, my ministry would not have developed to where it is had I not had the environment or the platform of being a pastor's kid. Because as a pastor's kid, there's certain things that you are afforded to do because your parent is the pastor. So it allows you to, I watch my siblings, like we all sing or play instruments, and I've watched my younger brothers fumble around on their instruments until they actually got good. We probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that had our dad not been the pastor. So there's a development that comes with that, an environment that I think you have to, number one, be grateful for, because every minister does not have that opportunity or the space to be able to do that. They may be stifled. The one thing I had to learn is that I was not my dad. And I have a lot of his personality characteristics. Anybody that knows me and knew my dad, they already know I'm a lot like him. But the one thing I had to learn was how he preached, how he ministered is not me. I have to figure out who I am when it comes to ministry. I'm a very personable person. Like, I'm not caught up in titles. So people that I deal with, I don't mind them calling me Malika. I actually prefer that because I feel like titles become this invisible barrier that makes people feel like they can't touch you or connect to you, or you're on a different level or better than them. And I never want people to feel that way. And so I had to learn who I was, but I also had to have examples outside of him that I could go to look at that said, okay, hey, yes, your dad is your pastor, so he's sowing into you. He's where you're getting your foundation. He's where you're getting fed on a regular basis. He's also your parent, so he's guiding your development. I started a ministry young, so he was there the entire time. But I had to realize I had to seek out other people. It's not any disrespect to them as your parent that they're not qualified or capable of teaching you. You have to have other voices. I feel like that's really important because, like you said at the very beginning, you become a carbon copy if you don't see other ways to be. I needed to see other styles. I needed to see how Iona Locke delivered a message, how a Carolyn Showell delivered a message, or how even a Naomi Cecily. And if you're young and don't know who that is, you need to find out. Wow. She is key for me with how I minister the altar. The way she taught us how to work with souls at the altar came from her. And the way she preaches is not what we consider the traditional apostolic way of delivering a message. So I had to have other voices, but I got to the point where I never did anything because I felt obligated because my dad was a pastor. I used to be over the choir for decades. I was over the choir. At one point, when I started school for graduate school, I left the music ministry. And it wasn't on a bad note. It was just, I knew my calling was shifting. So music will always be a part of me. But I knew I was going into a help ministry. I was going to be in school. And I had to start putting into place things that were going to be in place when I got to the end of the journey educationally. So I wanted counseling to be a part of our model. I wanted there to be a help ministry that dealt with emotions and our mental health education. I had to start putting that in place. Be willing to let go of stuff for the other things that God is opening up and developing in you. Do I, like now I'm singing on a praise team, but yeah, we're in quarantine. So basically the musicians in the praise team is me and my siblings. So that's a different situation. But I was willing to let that go, what I knew my entire life, to be able to be better at what God was calling me for in this time. And I was blessed enough to have a dad that was willing to allow me to do that. He didn't force me to stay in something just because. Everyone doesn't have that place, but you do have to know when your calling shifts. I feel like that's the whole different conversation when your calling shifts, and it will shift for some people as you age. So that's my PK journey.
This, y'all, listen, if you're just joining, listen, this conversation, you're going to have to take some time to go back and watch the replay, because this conversation has been absolutely incredible. And it's amazing how fast time goes when we're just in it. And I promise you, we could stay here. Listen, these incredible human beings are extraordinary, and we could just rock out all night, but like Dr. Ray Key said, he's got to go to bed. So we're going to minimize this now. This question I'm going to pose to Dr. Key, and then I'm going to give everybody final remarks. So there was a question that was asked earlier. How do you suggest, and this is getting back to what we talked about earlier with social injustice and racial discrimination, how do you suggest we navigate through our non-people of color brothers and sisters negative views of us speaking out on racial injustices? There's an alarming number of non-POC or people of color believers who feel like we are blowing things out of proportion. And I'm gonna start with Ray, because all of y'all can answer this, but I'm gonna let Ray start this thing right, and we're gonna end on a bang. Go ahead.
Listen, I don't have a long answer for that question. Let me. Can I just say something regarding Malika's question? For that person that asked about talked about loyalty. I just want to encourage that person to remember that your loyalty is to God. I want you to remember that. Because I work with a lot of church folk who come from family churches, or their pastors are their parents, and their loyalty to their parents is stronger than their loyalty to God. You have to remember that you belong to God. And if by chance he decides to move you wherever he wants to move you, you can't cry loyalty to parents and expect to still be in obedience to God. So just be careful of that. Now, in terms of this whole, how do we navigate our white counterparts' displeasure with our voicing our anger and our thoughts about what is validly happening to us and has been happening to us. This is my thought right here. We've already done enough. Why now do I have to navigate and consider and manage your emotions when I'm trying to process mine? That's all I want to know. We're so concerned about white fragility. I'm sorry.
Say it again.
We're so conditioned to be concerned about hurting somebody else's feelings that we are creating more tasks for ourselves that pull on our emotional reservoir so that they feel okay while we still trying to figure out why we not okay.
Jesus Christ.
I don't have an answer for that. My answer is don't navigate it. Let them feel what they want to feel and figure out a way to process through it themselves. And you finish processing through what you validly been through. That's my answer.
Anybody else?
I mean, I say, I'm sorry.
No,
I
go
say,
ahead, girl.
For me, you have to decide where you're at, right? There are those that might have the mental space and capacity to give a little bit of grace, to have that conversation, to kind of be there while someone might be fumbling through what's going on. And I actually recently went through this with a colleague where he made a post that I thought had a racial implicit bias, and I called him out on it. And it didn't end well. And I said, at first I said, I want to try to educate you. But when I saw that he wasn't interested in learning and growing, I said, another one bites the dust. Delete. You gotta go.
Right.
I mean, I'm too old. People make fun of me because I just turned 35. So I'm like, I'm middle aged now. I don't have time to fool with folks who don't really have my back. And if you have implicit bias in your heart and you're not willing to check it or at least be educated that it's there, for me as a person of color to call it out in you in humility, and you say, I didn't even know that was there. Thank you. You got to go. Check you the deuces, and I'm moving on my way. Duly noted.
Dr. Brown, I'll the floor to you.
As Pastor Shorter called me Malika X in the comments. I'm gonna just be real. I ain't got time. Most days I don't have time for that. And I'm just gonna be real. If you say something that's insensitive in this current climate, like, it's too many examples of what not to say and what not to do. And if you still say it now, it makes me question, number one, your intelligence, because just some stuff to me is stupid to do, right? Every time I post a video of somebody getting fired behind a Facebook post or a tweet or a video that they posted, I often question, like, how dumb can you be? Like, you haven't seen all these people losing their jobs behind racism? Like, at what point do you figure out this is not okay? And now we're in a climate where people are not going to accept that. So that's the next thing. The other thing is, I question, why did I connect with you in the first place? Like, how did we get whatever relationship we have? Because I must have missed something. I must have been asleep that day. I must have overlooked something. I must have been busy, tired. I don't know. But I try not to connect with people that will be willing to harm another person, whether it's verbally or with their actions, because I'm not that type of person. And this might hurt some people's feelings, but it's okay. I'm not gay, but I'm not going to be a person that's going to be offensive to a person from the LGBTQ community, because that's another human being. Do I agree necessarily? No. Do I know their lived experience? No. But I'm not going to be insensitive and say something out of pocket because I don't understand. So I feel like from a racial standpoint, you have to have that same perspective. You're not Black, got that, but you're human. So as a human being, you understand what it's like to be mistreated. How did that feel? Didn't like that? Okay, we don't either. And then the other part is, like Lee said, I'm grown. I'm good and grown. I got grown kids. I don't have time to babysit your feelings. Like, we're the offended. If anything, you should be consoling us. Right. Because the reality is, Black people should be looking for vengeance and we're not. So what you should be doing,
talk about that.
You need to sit down. You need to sit down and move carefully, because right now is not the time for that. It's not. This shift is different than what it's been in the past. This is not Rodney King. This is not 1991. This is different. And you might get hurt out in these streets if you don't get yourself together and check your racism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yeah, listen, y'all, this conversation is one for the books. I have thoroughly, I'm gonna get some good sleep tonight, I promise. Because we have dealt with some things, and I hope every young minister, and I'll even go further, every person that have watched tonight have really been able to take away some invaluable information, because that's all that's been given tonight from beginning to the end. Invaluable information to help you in your life as you navigate through this season, navigate through this world. So much is happening, but what was shared tonight, if you really take it to heart, it's going to help you emotionally, it's going to help you spiritually, it's going to help you to even reevaluate areas in your life that needs greater improvement, and you don't want to let this information just fall on deaf ears. You really want to apply it. That means you gotta go back and watch it again. Take notes, meditate on it. Take certain pieces of the information and dive deeper into it, and even look at some things in the word and see how they all parallel, how they correlate with each other. Because I promise you, a lot of things that they shared tonight is rooted even in biblical principles. Some of the stuff we've learned in church was not Bible. Sorry, there you go.
At all.
Like that. It wasn't Bible. It was traditional, but it wasn't Bible. And that's the issue. And what we're trying to do is help people to understand that if you go by the word of God, if you go by what God has to say, I promise you, there's some things that you learn that you may relook and revisit, and you will see maybe that wasn't really the right way to approach that. Just as a means of announcements, again, July 29th through August 1st, we have our exciting international virtual convention. This year, we are coming directly to your home. You ain't got to buy a plane ticket. You ain't got to buy a hotel or rent a hotel room reservation. You ain't got to get no food vouchers and put away money and try to, manage bills and all. You ain't got to do none of that. We're coming to your home with just a click of a button. I promise you, we got some exciting preachers and speakers. Bishop Noel Jones, Bishop Lambert Gates, our presider, is going to be presenting a phenomenal word. Bishop Theodore Brooks. We have Elder Mark Moore that will be joining us. We have some great panelists. I'm telling you, the conversations that we have taking place during this convention are going to be extraordinary. I mean, some phenomenal men and women. I'm telling you, their voices are powerful, and the information that they're going to be sharing is going to bless your life. I want you, listen, to follow each of these incredible individuals on their social media. On Instagram, you can follow, I call her Aunt Malakia because I've known her for many years, Dr. Malakia Brown at Dr. Malakia Speaks, all right, on Instagram, Dr. Malakia Speaks. There you can find her. She has some powerful quotes that she shares on a consistent basis, or you can follow her at Doc_M Breezy. Okay, you can follow her on Instagram. Lee Vincent, you can follow her on Instagram at Mrs_DMV, or here on Facebook at Lee Vincent, or Dr. Malakia Brown here on Facebook at Malakia Brown. And Dr.Rayvan Key. You can follow him on Instagram at Dr. with 2 R's, K and the number 2, or here on Facebook, Rayvan Key. I promise you, follow them. If you want, inbox them. You might have some questions or some things that they shared tonight, and they're not afraid to answer your questions, nor to show compassion in giving these answers to you, because we're here to help you. Also, next week, Pastor Liz Clark, one of our leadership team members, is going to be doing a download next week. She is a powerful voice. You don't want to miss next week. And then coming in the future, in August, we have Elder David Hollis coming to talk to us about the art of storytelling. Also, we have Pastor Nissan Stewart that will be with us, dealing with cross or bivocational endeavors, how to be in ministry and still be a professional. Okay, some of us are gifted in that. Ministry is priority, but it may not be the only thing that we specialize in. So he's going to be talking about those things. We have Pastor Sandra Riley coming with us later in the year with Road Rules and some other exciting guests. I can't wait to share that with you all in due time. But thank you. We're over schedule, but just it is what it is. Go to bed. It's okay. We love y'all. Thank you, Dr. Brown, Dr. Key, and Dr. Vincent, in the name of Jesus. We love y'all. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in.
Bless
We'll see
you.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.